Alright, I wanted to make a little video before I get into this on a little introduction to the valve body here. So this guy is what controls pressure flow to certain parts of the transmission. It's what controls, sorry here my lens is gummed up. That made it way worse, just a minute. Okay, that is much better. Alright, what was I saying? This controls when, certain gears come in, when certain gears go out, reverse, pressure, all that stuff is controlled by this valve body here. What we are looking for when I tear this apart is a broken spring or a stuck valve or bent valve or, whatever it be. We want one of these valves to be messed up in some way or another, because if it's not, then there's really no way to, there's no reason that my transmission failed the way it did, which is going to be very concerning unless it's that servo like I mentioned in the last video, which is quite possible because I can't get it to activate. But if I take this apart and there's no, noticeable fault, it's going to be a little suspect. But anyway, before I get too much into that, the basics of what you want to do with this and the reason that I'm rebuilding it, you don't have to touch this if you don't want to. It's not necessary, and the parts to do this, to rebuild this, don't come in your rebuild kit for the trans. So if your transmission ended up having all the clutches burnt out of it, then rebuilding it and making sure your TV cable is adjusted correctly is going to be your fix. My fix got a whole lot more complicated when I realized that all the clutches looked brand new and the band wasn't even hardly touched, which means it never activated in the first place. Which means either A, my problem is with the servo, or it's with this guy here. So I'm going to rebuild it, or I'm going to take it apart, clean everything, replace the wear parts that are in it, such as springs and seals, which I have in my rebuild kit, or when they buy one for this, it's called a shift kit. Hopefully that'll fix the problem. So before you start here, you want to take note of where you're at with it and what it looks like before you take everything apart. I've got all the serial numbers facing me at a readable, in a readable way, so I can read them all, I suppose I should say. And I have them lettered on the sides here. A, B, C, D, kind of rubbed off, E, and F for all my valves on this side. And then all my valves on this side are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that's going to help me keep track of what I've got here. So A through F on the left side of the numbers, and 1 through 7 on the right side of the numbers. I can already tell you by looking at this that I'm seeing some faults, like this pin here. All these valves are held in by pins, okay? These little dowel pins, okay? And they're supposed to be metal, but that one looks plastic, and I can already tell that the other ones look kind of plasticky too. But regardless of what the material is, that one's not pounded in all the way, sorry. That one is not pounded in all the way. That one's not pounded in all the way from the other direction. That one's pounded in too far. That one's not in all the way. So this has been apart before, to my knowledge anyway. The way it looks, I'd say it's been apart before. And whoever put it back together did a very subpar job, or didn't know what they were doing and didn't do it right. So I'm hoping maybe we might be onto something here. First thing you're going to want to do, and the only thing I'm going to do in this video, is take off this. This is an overflow tube. It's just going to supply excess transmission fluid from the top of the pump, or from the top of the valve body to the bottom over here, and it just comes off. You can pull it off during your disassembly too. It just pops out like that and pops out like that. Note the way that it was on. I have plenty of pictures so I don't have to. And just put it off to the side. And that's all I'm going to do in this video, because this is just an introduction of how this works and what I'm doing and all that fun stuff. But I will give you a fair warning. Obviously document what it looks like before we take it apart, because each of these valves is completely different from the other, just like the transmission clutches. Each of them is completely different. If you put it back together wrong, then you're going to be in for a real fun time. I mean that sarcastically, obviously. But the other thing that you're going to want to know about this is that when you take these pins out, the springs are, all the spring tension is being held in by these pins, which is another reason why I think it's kind of, not good that they're plastic, because there's a lot of spring tension on these. When you pop these pins out, you're going to want to put your finger at the end of each of these valves, because when that pin comes out, the spring will cause the valve to launch across the shop at very high velocity. So always keep your hands in front of the valve and slowly bleed off the pressure from the spring. Otherwise, it's like taking a spring compressor on a suspension, shock, and compressing it all the way, and then letting go of the compressor. That spring is going to launch up in the air at about 50 miles an hour or more. It's going to be crazy. So you don't want one of these springs to launch across the shop, especially if you don't have a shift kit. I do, so it's not that big of a deal, but I'd still like to know what spring was in there before it, went all the way to Timbuktu through the window over there. So, yeah, that's the only warning I really have for you. There's your reverse light deal. So you're going to take that out too. It's just a little thing. It's probably like a, I don't know, 3/4 or something like that. Metric probably on this one. But anyway, it's not important. Take that thing out and then start removing your valves. And I heard they can be a little sticky sometimes, getting them out. And you have to bang on it a bit, so I might not be able to record it. So just as a, pre-warning, I suppose, if I don't release a video on me actually taking it apart, it's because I could not record and do it at the same time, and the video wouldn't have been worth making, just like the servo. So I will give you a fair warning there. It might not, I might end up uploading a video of me taking that apart, but I will definitely explain it to the best of my ability if I cannot take it apart and document it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next one.